Y'all, Wizard101 is about to massively change its final dungeon. So if you guys have been watching the videos, you might have already seen this, but a lot of people have had a lot of critiques of the most recent final dungeon in Wizard101. This is a dungeon that you run for both the best PvE gear for your school and also some really good sets that have shads and defense for PvP. So they released like a more challenging version of this dungeon that drops all of this gear first, and then they released a more casual version for everybody to do. But the problem was the casual version didn't feel really casual. It felt pretty difficult. So today Wizard101 announced that there's going to be a bunch of changes that they're going to be adding to that standard mode of the dungeon. So this is the message that they left in the test from Discord, and these are some fairly sweeping changes. I thought we would go over them and also talk about the past week on this game. It's been a little nuts. So according to Wizard101, they're making sure that dungeon recall is working as intended. I think a lot of people thought the dungeon recall was working as intended in standard mode and they were unable to recall properly into the dungeon. I think there was some sort of weird bug that was just preventing it, probably because you can't dungeon recall in challenge mode, but standard mode should be way more casual than that. You should be able to go into the dungeon, need a potion, exit, get the potion, go back, right? Just like any other, like, you know, mainstream dungeon that we've become accustomed to. That's not where the changes stop. One of the most frustrating parts of this dungeon, the broken dreams, are getting multiple changes added onto them for the casual version of the dungeon. One change is that the ones that are really annoying, they're just getting removed from the dungeon. This was what I wanted, me personally, because I just feel like the challenge mode should have, you know, even like the mechanics that are not battle related, it should be harder there than standard mode, right? It should be nerfed for the casual version. And also, apparently they're fixing some of the latency issues related to them. Now this, I'm gonna believe it when I see it. Like, maybe they improved it, but I feel like I saw some shenanigans with specifically the broken dreams. These are things that go around the dungeon, teleporting you where you don't want to go. So we'll see if this broken dreams change is that good. The big takeaway, however, is that they're easier in the casual version, and this was probably one of the most frustrating things for most people running the dungeon. As far as the combat, it looks like they've changed both a boss and I guess like somewhat of a minion fight. You can call it a boss fight if you want. Depending on how you define it, up to 2 boss fights have been changed in the standard mode so that they're just less obnoxious, easier to deal with. The croc boss, like, you have to remove a heal if he casts it on himself, and that's just like kind of like hard to like do because you need to pack very specific spells for it. They removed the croc cheat where he does a heal on himself. I assume because you need Skeletal Pirate or Triton in standard mode to counter it. I'm expecting casual players to pack either Triton to remove overtime heals or Skeletal Pirate. It's like even Skeletal Pirate, I feel like this is expecting quite a lot for people to like get Spellmans, get the counter. The only other heal counters that would work in that boss fight are PvP only, so they weren't allowed in standard mode. So I think that was a very good change. And also, I assume that this dingo thing, I don't really know. I assume that it didn't allow blades or traps. That's what I'm gonna assume. So they removed those cheats so you can blade and trap against what I would assume is every single minion in this dungeon. And finally, I don't know why they put this at the end of this list. I would argue this is the most important change. They're changing the badge requirement for you to get this badge, and getting this badge is really the big goal here. Right now, casual mode or standard mode, if you do this dungeon, hard version or easy version 25 times successfully, then you can craft anything from this dungeon by getting Dream Water. 25 is a lot. It's very tedious. If you're doing standard mode, it takes a long ass time. Even challenge mode, to get good at it and then do it, you know, maybe 20 times, 15 times more after getting good at it, it's a lot. So this number is going to become 15. Now, I'm very happy they're doing this as well. I think this is just, a lot of people probably had feedback saying, yo, great, we can craft anything by getting this badge, but getting the badge itself is very tedious. It looks like that was a piece of feedback that was very apparent this time around. I think they listened and changed it pretty quickly. So if everything in this video has been a whole lot of mumbo jumbo to you, the real big, you know, TLDR is, especially if you're a casual player, you now have an easier dungeon that you can run less times to get the same good gear. I think with this change, I gotta say, compared to any end world gear that we've had since, I want to say at least Imperia, this is the best system they've ever had. This is probably the least grindy version to get gear, and you have a way to speed it up by challenging yourself. I really have no complaints on the way you get gear in Wallaru now, especially after these changes. And to get to the point of what's been happening this week on Wizard101, I don't know if y'all have been seeing this on Twitter, on social media. I haven't really been weighing in that much much except maybe live on stream. But a lot of people are saying that KingsIsle doesn't listen. They're saying that the game is getting worse and that it's anti-casual. And in all honesty, even though I haven't weighed in super deeply, I have no issues myself with so much of this dialogue happening. I think it's actually healthy for the game when people that, you know, or maybe, you know, they're discontented. Maybe they really want to say why they have an issue. But this announcement, it kind of does show that a lot of people are overreacting sometimes when they say that KingsIsle isn't listening. They couldn't have possibly even gotten this announcement together and put it out on a Saturday if they weren't obviously taking feedback on how standard mode was working. Will this update fix every issue that KingsIsle's ever had? Obviously not. There's a lot of things that they need to add to the game to probably appease a lot of players. But a lot of times when I see people weigh in on this, I feel like there's this insinuation that the devs and players are not on the same side, that we are completely at odds with how the game could be better. And yet the world of Wallaru, after every update up to this point, has made the game less grindy at end level. It's introduced a fun dungeon, hopefully now for casuals and people that want to challenge equally. And even things like PvP this update seems to be slightly better than before. There seems to be more competitive schools than there were before. That's a plus. And I hope with this announcement today shows is that it's actually pretty easy to be negative and dogpile on a game, especially one that you care about. I know I've done it, but I hope the same people that are this vocally negative are also celebrating things like this, because I can't remember a time that they acted so quick to fix something that affected so many casual players. I think now that the main gear from Wallaru is going to be way more accessible for way more people, my big issue with gear at max level is the fact that raids, not like, you know, challenge modes, but actually raids still feel like you kind of have to do them to get competitive stats in PvP. And I'm not talking about getting the best stats. I'm talking about getting competitive stats. I've had wizards with maybe one to two pieces of raid gear, but they don't have like the 3 to 4 that they need. And I'm still losing games off of it that I wouldn't otherwise lose, which it's kind of nuts. So I hope now with their, you know, experimentation with challenge mode and standard mode really coming to the close, I think for the first time, they've really gone, you know, knee deep in challenge mode and standard mode. I hope whatever lessons they've learned can also be somewhat applied over to raids. I feel like maybe raids need a way for you to participate them in a challenging version and an easy version. Maybe there's a way they can do that where you don't have to be in a guild. I think if they could adapt some of the ways they've, like, you know, played with difficulty with challenge mode into raids, I think gear at max level would be in the best spot ever. But yeah, that's kind of like my only big remaining issue with gear. It is still a big one. Raids are a big issue. Let me know what you guys think of the changes to standard mode. Are you someone who maybe quit doing standard mode and now you want to try it again? What else would you do to change up how Wallaru handles gear, stats, all that stuff? And do you guys think that KingsIsle isn't listening in some aspects? And where do you think they could improve? I think that's a great way to, like, you know, comment on this video. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon. And yeah, y'all.